Hundreds of thousands of people fleeing two entirely separate wars have all found their way here to Armenia. One war took place in the Armenian enclave of Nagorno-Karabakh, a mountainous region in the South Caucasus that Armenia and Azerbaijan have been fighting over for the last 3 decades. A former Soviet republic, Armenia has historically looked to Russia as an ally and protector in the region. But with Moscow bogged down by the other war, its invasion of Ukraine, Azerbaijan launched a military offensive in September that seized control of Nagorno-Karabakh in less than 48 hours. By the following week, more than 100,000 ethnic Armenians had poured across the border seeking refuge. And they're not the only ones. Since the Ukraine invasion, 100,000 Russians have also fled into Armenia. One of them is Igor Kirillov, a former policeman from St. Petersburg who now works at this cafe in Yerevan.
Где я жил 9 лет, когда началась война в Украине, я уехал из страны ввиду того, что я не мог находиться больше в такой обстановке и соглашаться с этим. Для меня компромисс был закончен.
Because of their history, Armenia shares deep political, historical, and cultural bonds with Russia. It also offers Russians passport-free admission, so Armenia is one of the few places where people who oppose the war can go to escape sanctions and conscription.
Я не вижу перспективы возвращения в Россию сейчас, ввиду политической системы, ввиду аппарата репрессий. Вообще абсолютно просто с тем, что происходит в России, я не согласен. Существовать безопасно там невозможно. Мои ближайшие планы никто сейчас не планирует больше, чем на какие-то короткие промежутки времени, типа там.
Russian migration has been good for Armenia's economy, but there are downsides. While GDP grew 12.6% in 2022, inflation hit 8.6%. And that makes life really difficult for the Karabakh Armenian refugees looking for stability in their cultural homeland. Andranik and his family fled Nagorno-Karabakh and are now living in Yerevan, Armenia's capital. But the influx of Russian immigrants has driven up costs and created job scarcity. So in January, he plans to move on to Russia, where life is cheaper, but also unfamiliar, and a lot farther from his ethnic homeland. Since the September offensive, relations between the two countries have collapsed. Armenia says Moscow failed to live up to its obligations. Because of its priorities in Ukraine, Russia abandoned its only strategic ally in the South Caucasus, and Armenian refugees are now paying the price. Andranik and Igor are two sides of the same issue. Armenia is a nation with its own distinct, indigenous problems and identity, but it's hard to extricate from Russia's sphere of influence. And that plays out in people's daily lives. Even a war being fought 1,000 miles away has a huge impact on the thousands of Armenian refugees looking for a place to call home. For GZERO World, I'm Fin DePencier.